His new book, Disloyal, you know whose former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, calls himself a designated thug for his old boss and is currently serving time for campaign finance violations, tax evasion, and lying to Congress. He now says he's coming clean when he writes, and I quote, I know where the skeletons are buried because I was the one who buried them. Please welcome back Michael Cohen. Good morning, Michael Cohen.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Good. In the beginning of the book, you write, as you read my story, you will no doubt ask yourself if you like me or if you would act as I did. And the answer will frequently be no to both questions. So I'm going to ask you, what's the verdict been from other people so far?
Well, I'm very thankful that I've been getting tremendous reception and tremendous accolades for the book. Mostly, I mean, there are always the detractors that no matter what you do and no matter how you put yourself out there, they're always going to be negative. But for the most part, it's been well received. And the whole purpose of the book was really to open up people's eyes so that they understand the individual that's asking them to vote for him in November. And if you agree with their moral compass and you agree with their behavior, then he's the man for you. But if you don't, now is the time to really understand him. And that was what I was trying to do, to give you some insight into who the man really is, something that nobody else has been able to do.
Mr. Cohen, you were a trusted advisor and close confidant of President Trump. And there's a really long habit on this show where people who have worked with the Trump administration closely all of a sudden switch gears after doing all his bidding and then atone for the sins of working for President Trump. You own up to being a liar, a cheater, and a thug for President Trump. You write, quote, I took a weird kind of pleasure in harming others in the service of Donald Trump. I feel like I knew that about you before interviewing you, and now that you're switching sides and switching narratives and you're now telling me that Trump's a bad dude, why should I believe that? Because I don't easily swallow my initial instincts on people, and a liar is a liar is a liar, so why aren't you lying now?
Well, let me start first, Megan, by saying that, number one, I believe that your father was a tremendous hero to this country, and it's things like that, and I have some great photos.
But he did that before President Trump was even the nominee. That doesn't get that far with me. With a lot of people that say things like that, with all due respect, he said that before he was the nominee. And again, I understand, but I knew who President Trump was from day one. It doesn't take your book to tell me differently.
And so your question is what, Megan?
My question is, what made you change your tune other than money? And why should I believe you because you're an admitted liar?
Well, okay, you do have to look at what the lies were all about. They were at the direction of and for the benefit of Donald J. Trump. I've said that since day number one. And first and foremost, I also want to say I've been a Democrat my entire life. So when you say I'm switching sides, do you mean Republican, Democrat, or do you mean
No, I mean, you went from someone who was talking about Trump's poll numbers and doing all his bidding, you admittedly right, to now saying he's the worst person in the entire world.
So I think it was really my daughter who recently had an article about her in Vanity Fair, and I think she was even on CNN this morning. I was suffering from what she termed Stockholm syndrome. You know, my need to please him, very much like 38% of the population right now, was greater than my ability to control my own moral compass. And again, when we're talking about the lies, we were talking about, my statements to Congress about whether or not I spoke to Donald Trump about a failed real estate project in Moscow 3 times or 10 times, versus, of course, the 30,000 plus lies that the president has been talking. But what really made me change my mind the most is I start watching day to day the things that he's doing and the behavior that he's exhibiting that's dividing this country in such a way that I cannot support this type of behavior any longer. And it has nothing to do with money.
All right, Michael. When I spoke to you recently, you said you were in the cult. That answered my question. But let's get to this. Trump has made creepy comments about your own daughter, the brave little girl who wrote the article. He said, now he made creepy comments about Ivanka when he was on this show. He was obnoxious. I was sitting there with him. And he once leered at your then 15-year-old daughter, Samantha, and made, just like lewd comments, which I won't even repeat because they're annoying. When you informed him that your daughter, you say, about that she was your daughter, you say he joked to her. He said, you better watch out because in a few years I'll be dating one of your friends. Here's my question, Michael. Why didn't you sock him in the face for that at that moment? How could you let that slide?
Again, I have to just refer back to my daughter. When she talks about Stockholm syndrome, I knew it was wrong under any other circumstances. I never would have allowed anybody to speak about her that way. But, I was part of the cult. I was a big part of the cult. And there really was no wrong that he can do, even though I knew it was wrong. I don't have an answer. And,
why don't you tell him right now what you'd like to say to him that day?
As a father, I never should have
why don't you say right now, Michael, say it right now on the air what you would have liked to have said to him that day. Say it now.
Well, I wouldn't have liked to have said it. I would have liked to have smacked him across the side of the head. I never would have allowed anybody to speak to or about my daughter in such a disrespectful way. And I did just because, as so many people would say, let Trump be Trump. And that's the problem. The country, myself, the whole purpose of Disloyal was really to get people to open up their eyes and to see the individual for who he really is. And I'm not the only one that's suffering from what I really call Trump derangement syndrome. And the whole 38% of this country is suffering from it.
It's like being in a cult. You remember Jim Jones? It's the same mindset.